I didn't commit any crimes.
The cell phone video starts in the middle of 20-year-old Fitzroy Gayle's Wednesday evening encounter with a plainclothes NYPD police officer in Canarsie, Brooklyn.
Ask if you're being detained.
Gayle asks the officer repeatedly what he did wrong. The officer responds by repeatedly telling the young man to stop moving as he radios for backup. Backup arrives in the form of several officers running down the street to the scene. All of them surround Gayle, who's still standing against a fence on Glenwood Avenue with his hands in the air. As they bring him down to the ground, you can hear Gayle screaming at the bottom of the pile as the officers place him under arrest. Now that you've seen how this encounter ended, listen to NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea describe how it began.
Yesterday afternoon in the 6-9, we had a shot spotter alert indicating shots fired. Several blocks away from that, I believe two officers, I think, encountered two males in a park. As they approached them, they believe they're smoking marijuana.
Commissioner Shea did not establish any connection between Gayle, the other man who he was with, and the reports of shots fired in the area. Only that they were allegedly smoking marijuana and allegedly ran away when approached by the plainclothes officer.
What did I do? I did not do anything. He saw me in the park and he came out the car and followed me.
The video begins after that officer already stopped Gayle on the street.
It just reminds me of Eric Garner. It's like this is happening again.
Daphne Gayle, standing Thursday alongside her son, family attorney, and a crowd of supporters in front of the 69th Precinct Station House, is furious.
He did not do nothing and even say he did something wrong. At the same time, they're not supposed to treat him like an animal. That's the main thing I'm focusing on.
The end is what concerns me. I'd love to have a different outcome where we wind up on the ground wrestling with somebody.
Reaction has been heated. Comments all over the place coming into Pix 11 on social media, on the website. I want to thank everyone for joining me here. We have Reverend Kevin McCall of Crisis Action Center and Fitzroy Gayle. Thank you for coming out. Mom, Daphne Gayle, and the family attorney, Sanford Rubenstein. Everyone, thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having us.
Fitzroy, how are you doing?
Not so good. Could be better.
We're going to have a conversation here about this stop because there have been some developments over the last, I'd say, three or 4 hours. You guys just met with the mayor's office here in New York City and with the Brooklyn DA's office. Let's start with the mayor's office.
We met with the mayor's office. We met with the top officials of the mayor's office. We had an hour conversation. They heard from the mother and also the sister and also Mr. Fitzroy, who had this encounter. The mayor said that even though that he is dealing with the coronavirus, he will make sure that this is a top priority in his office, and he will be able to make sure that these officers in whatever investigation that needs to happen be brought to the necessary justice that it needs to be.
Ms. Gayle, I was standing outside with you and the rest of the family outside the 69th Precinct almost a week ago.
Absolutely.
What you said stuck with me. You said that your son was treated like an animal.
Of course.
And you were outraged.
Of course, I was outraged, and I still is outraged because I watched the video I don't even want to say I watch it time and time again. I just want to say I watched it like probably 2 times, and it's just something that I will never forget. Because the way I look at the video and the way my son was treated, he was treated like less than an animal. We believe in the constitutional rights of the United States of America. I'm a citizen here for 15 years, so I try to stick to do the right thing. And I acknowledge that if you advantage an animal, either we get a ticket or we're going to jail for sure. That's not what we believe in, and we know that's what the constitutional right is all about, for human justice and stuff, human rights and justice. So therefore, if my son being treated like an animal while putting up his hand and he tried to do the right thing, and those officers did not care about him demonstrating his rights. So therefore, I want my son to acknowledge that he needs his right and he have to get it back because he was doing the right thing. And if he acknowledge what is being true and what they done to him, and he telling me how he felt, I really do believe something need to be done. Something need to be done.
I want to make it clear that there have been no judgments that have been made by the police department. This is still under investigation. Commissioner Dermot Shea, as you heard in the piece, said that he didn't like the way that this ended, but he was going to take a closer look. So we don't know the status of the officers who were involved in this conversation. We're not passing judgment, we're having a conversation. But I want to ask you, Mr. Rubenstein, in your opinion, what needs to happen from this point forward for the family and for the entire situation?
The first thing that needs to happen for this city is for these officers to be put on desk duty. These officers still on the street, still have their guns, no disciplinary action whatsoever, even on a temporary basis, has been taken. Secondly, we need all the criminal charges that have been pressed against them by these police officers dismissed. District Attorney is doing an investigation. By the date the case comes up in court, the 24th of this month, he will have an answer as to whether or not he will not prosecute these charges. And we will, of course, ask the judge to dismiss them in the interest of justice. But even more importantly, there is an independent investigation right now underway by the Kings County District Attorney's Office. And we appreciate Eric Gonzalez, the DA in Brooklyn, meeting with us today and meeting with high-level ranking officials in that department that investigates police wrongdoing, because if there was criminal activity by the police officers pounding on him, stomping on his ankle, those actions should be prosecuted criminally.
There are a lot of comments coming in, and I want to read a few of them. Latrice Wallace says, it's not about getting money for this. Y'all not looking at the bigger picture. This young man had his hands up and literally screamed for them not to kill him. This is scary.
Yes, it really is scary. And it's not about money, it's about justice. At the end of the day, that's why this case, we made sure to meet with the mayor, we made sure to meet with the district attorney, and on Friday we're meeting with the governor, because we're not just sitting back and allowing another case to be able to happen and have the same conversation about police misconduct and police training and community policing. And there was reports that saying that he was smoking marijuana in the park. And they arrested him because of that, and they charged him with that. But that's why we're meeting with the governor, because we want to know from the governor to be able to make an executive order to say that, hey, let's prohibit this, even though we're trying to be able to make it a legalize marijuana, but in the interim, so we can stop this another level of modern day stop and frisk of people with low levels of marijuana. Let me put an executive order in. And if he had to amend it later on, that's fine, but at least we can have that conversation. This can be on the books. And so these officers don't have to be able to stop our young people with this. He was not running at all. If you look at the video, it shows that he had his hands up. And basically a hands up, that is something that we teach and the police officer teach about knowing your rights when you stop by a police officer. And also, he said, why you're stopping me? What's the reason why? The officer could not explain. His name is Officer Davidoff. He could not explain why he was being stopped. So yes, it's about justice. Yes, this is something that should not have happened, and it could have all been prevented if the officer would have said something to not just him. There's officers pounding him. And not only that, he sat in the precinct. He got arrested at 8 o'clock at night, and he sat in the precinct till 2 o'clock the next day. And his mother can be able to explain more, but it took me coming to the precinct at 2:30 to demand for him to get released.
I want to ask this to either Sandy or Reverend McCall. Either one of you take this. What I noticed in listening to Dermot, Commissioner Shea, is he made sure to mention that this started with shot spotter going off of shots fired in the neighborhood, and that the officers responded to the area, possibly a couple of blocks away, because of that. What do you make of that?
Let's first of all make one thing clear. He had nothing to do whatsoever with shot fires. And if anything, what the video demonstrated is why stop and frisk was declared unconstitutional by a federal judge. Yet in this city today, the levels of stop and frisk has increased. In 2019, there was more stop and frisk than in 2018. 33,000 stop and frisk. Yet this mayor who got elected 7 years ago by opposing stop and frisk now is running an administration in which stop and frisk is on the rise. This must stop.
let me play devil's advocate here, because I'm thinking about other stories that I've covered where some encounter happens, and I'm recalling what I'm hearing from law enforcement advocates, members of the police department, and what they've said in previous stories is, well, so-and-so was not obeying a lawful order.
Look, dirty up the victim. First of all, he's got his hands up. He's saying, what did I do? What did I do? He's not being given any answers. And then all of a sudden, 6, 7 police officers come running down the street, throw him to the ground, stomp on him. This shouldn't be happening in this city.
Go ahead.
And on top of that is that this is not, this case is a clear-cut case of a good kid that obeyed the law. He did something that we trained and we spoke about, that the law enforcement officials, that Dermot Shea, they seem like they talk about two sides of their mouth. Because one minute he says, okay, I have questions about the video from officers stomping on his foot. Clearly we see that in the video. Then the next aspect, he's saying, oh, he shouldn't have ran, which he didn't run anyway, because it was right across the street from the park. So you can ask any police officer, they'll tell you that first of all, that police officer put himself in harm's way, because if he had a weapon, he's facing him. The training is for you to be able to turn around and place your hands up and get on your knees, which he didn't even do that. He wasn't reading his Miranda rights. He wasn't even given food nor a phone call at the precinct.
Ms. Gayle, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You heard Commissioner Shea say, I don't like the way that this ended. What were your thoughts when you heard that phrase, when you heard him say that?
What comes to my head, the way he said it, as if he didn't like the way it was handled, as if it was good or bad. Because the video tells the whole tales of the matter. Like, even if I didn't have to come here and say something, you just watch the video and it tells you everything. And my thing is, money cannot bring forth life, and that's my main subject. Like, if I didn't have my son here with me, I don't know what would I do. So therefore, for him to be treated like that, I don't know, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
We've got a lot of people commenting here. Sandra Roman, I'm so glad they're investigating this situation. This is so not right. They literally kicked him and stomped on his foot. I understand that there were some injuries involved.
Yes, he sustained injuries to his head, his neck and back, to his knee and ankle. This is an example of why young people today fear the police in this city, and they shouldn't. They should be cooperating with the police. Yet there's a fear of police in this city because of what happened here.
When we met with the district attorney today, the district attorney said to the family that he has a son. He was very disturbed about what he saw, and it shouldn't have happened. There's no, you can't watch this video and not have a heart. You can't watch this video and not see what transpired to him and say that he was wrong.
So we have a couple of weeks before the Brooklyn DA's office could decide to dismiss this?
Absolutely.
That's correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm guessing that's what the family is hoping for.
And the
what
family is
they're
also
hoping for,
hoping that the
yes.
investigation by that office of the actions of the police officers be labeled as they are, which in my opinion was criminal.
And they should be charged. I mean, this was a kidnapping happened on tape. A kidnapping and an assault. He didn't know who he was being held for. They never told him. The officers just came and assaulted him and kicked him.
Let's be clear for people who are just jumping in, that's an opinion.
That's my opinion.
Okay.
Yes.
All you got to do is look at the video.
The
Pictures
video
of the
speaks for
truth.
itself. The video speaks for itself that it was a kidnapping because there was no, he asked him, what are you holding me for? With his hands up. That's a point of surrender. And they asked him not with him. So in the next couple of seconds, you see about 9 officers come and just jump on him.
Ms. Gayle, I'm going to give you the last word. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, it's not fair, because if the video demonstrates the whole thing, I mean, I don't think we should be going on and on with this thing as if, the video is not true. It's a real thing. And my son have to suffer the pain of what they did to him and stuff like that. So it's not fair. He needs justice and he needs his rights, because he was doing it the whole time. And they could not acknowledge what he was doing. He could be the next Bill de Blasio, because he stand out like an officer know to do the right thing and he stick by it. And it's a wake-up call, like if he's 20 years old. And 7 officers who should know better did this to him, and he still stand up. He should be the president because he stand up for the rights and he never deny it, because they want him to say, I found marijuana in you and I'm going to send you to Rikers Island. And in spite of what they accuse him of, he still stand up and said, no, I did not have marijuana. I wasn't smoking. I didn't have it in my bag. Why you want to charge me for something that I didn't know?
Ms. Daphne Gayle, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for
Fitzroy,
having
thank
me,
you
sir.
for coming out.
Thank you.
Family attorney Sanford Rubenstein,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us. Reverend Kevin McCall, Crisis Action Center, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.